Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.
And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for joining us right here at the PCC Multiverse, aka the Pop Culture Cosmos. Coming right back at you here. Of course, I'll also host a number of shows, including Inside Sports Fantasy Football, of course, the Lakers Fast Break, Lakers Latest. Do a lot of stuff like that, and of course, the State of Pro Wrestling as well. So go ahead and make sure you like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and make sure you go ahead and give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Plus, also as well, of course, please, if you can, please. Again, if you're listening to us on any radio station, give a big shout out to those radio stations that still play our shows all these years. The Multiverse, big month for us. It's a big month for us because I believe with this is number 497, we will hit by the end of the month 500 for the Multiverse, and we'll hit 10 years of the Cosmos. Of it on the Monday show, that'll hit 10 years as well. So big month in the state and the world of the Pop Culture Cosmos. 10 years for the Pop Culture Cosmos and 500 episodes for the PCC Multiverse, indeed.
That's
well, it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He is, of course, the guru of pop culture. His daughter hopefully will be able to return at some point down the road because she was just absolutely fantastic as far as her previous appearance here as well. I know he has a lot to say about a certain spider bug right there as far as the movie he did. Check it out. Plus also as well what's going on with the WWE and more. It is my good friend. It is TJ Johnson. How's it going, my friend?
Always good, sir. Just swung on in. Boy, are my arms tired.
Well, that's what you get for holding Zendaya throughout New York, you know.
Well, you know, I think there are worse problems I could have, Joe, than having the sore arms from holding Zendaya swinging throughout New York. But, you know,
yeah,
I digress.
This is true. This is true. Very true. I just found out some interesting numbers for the month of July in the world of video games, and that this is where we're at in 2026 when the two of the biggest selling games of the year came out in July, and we didn't really cover it because, again, something that has been brought out as a re-release we don't always cover on the show, but we should more often when it concerns Call of Duty. Black Ops 1 and 2 are two of the biggest games of the year, which tells you all you need to know about this year. I thought it was actually a pretty good year. So a lot of good games have come out. 007 First Light. Yep. I think 007 is the First Light is the one that needs to be selling 8 million units. Not Call of Duty Black Ops 1 and 2, but yeah, Black Ops 1 and 2, two of the biggest selling games of the year as far as the remakes, re-releases of that. So enjoy your Call of Duty Blops 1 and 2.
You know, I think that it really is telling when, like you said, those are the biggest selling games. And I don't know exactly what is it telling. Is it telling us that games suck right now? Is it telling us that we just prefer the games from yesteryear? Is it a combination of the two? Is it none of the above? Like there's a lot of uncertainty right now in the gaming community. And obviously we're talking about Black Ops 1 and 2. We're talking about software sales, but even if we just look at gaming as a whole into the future, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty on if, you know, we're going to be priced out. There's a lot of uncertainty on what's worth it, what's no longer worth it. Should buying a console be something that we focus on? Should we focus on going PC? There's so many different narratives and so many different thoughts that go along with the gaming subject in general that it's a very interesting, for lack of a better term, time to be a gamer or to be one associated with the gaming community. I do think it says a lot that Black Ops 1 and 2 are some of the biggest selling titles of July.
Of the year.
Of the entire year. It's a little, it's a little jarring to say the least. I don't think I'm remiss if I say it's a little jarring and unexpected for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it hit me from left field on that when I saw the numbers, and it was just like, oh wow, okay. All right. Again, when people say Call of Duty is dead, and I've said it was not exactly hitting that same heights that it did 10 years ago, but it's still obviously a mover for Microsoft, and it's a mover in many ways for Activision. So I guess whatever money that they can get for Xbox at this point in time, I guess is well worth it. But yes, so much is moving out on PlayStation because Call of Duty, Black Ops 1 and 2 scored well. But if you have thoughts on Blops, as I call it, Black Ops 1 and 2, the remakes have come out in July and are two of the biggest games of the year before GTA 6, of course. And before we really get it, I mean, the back quarter of the year is usually when the highest volume games are usually being sold. So we should see at least 2 or 3 more enter this list ahead of Blops. I'm hoping E-Day will be among them, but I do know GTA 6 absolutely will be. But if you have any thoughts on Blops 1 and 2, let us know for Call of Duty fans out there. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. So we'll talk a little bit later about Marvel Tokon, Beast of Reincarnation, because of who made Reincarnation, and that came out earlier this week as well. I wanted to go ahead and talk to you about that in a little bit. But obviously, the big news still is Spider-Man, brand new day. Yesterday, as we record this, it has surpassed all other movies, Toy Story 5, to become the biggest movie of the year worldwide. At over $1.1 billion. It's done a tremendous job. It's some of the biggest weekdays ever, capped off by what I said on Monday about some of the biggest, actually the biggest weekend in domestic history here in the United States, capped off again by some of the biggest weekdays follow suit, and as far as which bodes well for its legs long term, compared to what Avengers Endgame and some other movies of its ilk that earned that same type of really big money in its first weekend. But your thoughts, my friend? You've seen the film. I mentioned my thoughts on the Monday show. I know that Josh got a chance to see it later that day. I know he shared some thoughts with me on a personal level, so I will wait for him on Monday. But your thoughts, my friend, on Spider-Man, brand new day. Is it a brand new day for Spider-Man?
I have a lot of thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New Day.
We got plenty of time. Got
I think
52 minutes we can kill.
52 whole minutes. All right, here we go. I think number one, I want to say this is probably Tom Holland at his best in regards to performing the role of Spider-Man, performing the role of Peter Parker, and really kind of symbolizing both. And what I mean by that is, in the original Spider-Man trilogy, so the first 3 Spider-Man movies, right? I felt as if he was Spider-Man, but he was kind of his own version of Spider-Man. He wasn't really super witty. He wasn't super quippy. I don't know. He just didn't come across like the Spider-Man. Like, when I think of, for me,
I think I'm going to go ahead and say on the other end, maybe that's why he is doing so well and he's so relatable to a large audience, is because he's not the smartest. He's not, well, he's actually pretty smart because he did make that.
Yeah,
he did make a certain device that might change and upset the balance of the entire
game. Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll talk about that.
He makes many life mistakes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
He makes
but
many common mistakes.
That's not what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is the way he moves as Spider-Man. So, for instance, if you remember when Tobey Maguire first took up the mantle of Spider-Man, and he was the first Spider-Man that we all knew, but he wasn't really great at being the Spider-Man that we've come to know as far as the animated series, right? Or the Spider-Man we come to know from the comics. Very, very quippy, very quick-witted, very one-liners, boom, boom, boom. Like, he wasn't really funny. That might be the better way to put it. And then you get Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, who is so much more Spider-Man than what Tobey Maguire was. But I don't necessarily like his Peter Parker, because his Peter Parker was not the traditional Peter Parker, right? So he was much more Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire, in my opinion, was probably better Peter Parker. this is the first time that I can say that Tom Holland has really grabbed both roles, Spider-Man and Peter Parker roles, and blend them to making them his own, and actually, in my opinion, become one of the best Spider-Man on screen. Up until this Spider-Man, I still think my favorite Spider-Man was Andrew Garfield. I'll die on that hill. I don't feel bad about that. The best, overall, our goal was probably Tobey Maguire, but my favorite Spider-Man was Andrew Garfield. Until the Spider-Man Brand New Day. He had the quips, he had the athleticism, he had the vulnerability, he had the fun. Like he had everything that made this a quintessential Spider-Man story wrapped up into this adventure that was not multiverse, but was kind of small potatoes in the grand scheme of the new Avengers or what the Avengers might think. Spoiler alert if you guys haven't seen it yet, but I really think that this one was probably his definitive movie, and it's exciting to kind of think about what the future can look like now for him in the MCU. Now, obviously, there was a lot of things that happened in this movie that were really setting the stage for Marvel and the MCU as a whole into the future. I think this was a great bridge between this saga and moving into the now mutant saga, or once we're done with Doomsday and then once we're done with Secret Wars and kind of going into full-fledged mutant saga and introducing the X-Men in totality. Um, it's going to be really, really interesting. I think that it really kind of set up the Damage Control as a big bad kind of organization moving forward, kind of in the essence of what Hydra could have, what Hydra was, or I can see this turning them into the anti-mutant registration group, or the FOH, Friends of Humanity, from the X-Men series. They really have set the groundworks for introducing the mutants in a really, really good way. Instead of just saying, boom, here are the X-Men, they've really kind of made it out to where the mutants have been here all along. They've kind of just been in separate areas, kind of in hiding. And I really enjoy the way they kind of started to integrate them into the MCU as a whole, as opposed to just throwing you an X-Men film and here they all are, let's explain where they've been. No, they kind of sprinkle them in here and there and then kind of see how that progresses. They're introducing them into a world that's already kind of getting ready to fear the mutants, and it's going to really be setting up the precipice for the relationship, the contention between humans and mutants moving forward in the MCU. So there's a lot of things that have really kind of had the table set with Spider-Man, which is typically not something you hear a lot. Usually you get the table set in with the Captain America movies. Those are the ones that kind of set the table for the rest of the MCU. But this one was Spider-Man, and this one was very, very, very well done. Everybody's performance was amazing, from Tom Holland to Zendaya. I thought those two really carried the emotional weight of the movie. I was actually very surprised how much I enjoyed John Barenthal as the Punisher in a Spider-Man film. The first thing I thought when they had Spider-Man in it, or when they had Punisher in it, was we're going to get a PG-13 watered down version of Frank Castle. And while we didn't get One Last Kill Frank Castle, we definitely got the Punisher that we've known with John Barenthal. And I'm actually quite surprised that they let so much of it go the way that they did. They definitely pushed the PG-13 as far as they could push it without having to go into the into the arc anywhere with this language, which is what you expect from Punisher. But all in all, I thought the movie was great. I don't. The only thing I didn't particularly like, I didn't really like the ultimate antagonist, who the antagonist ultimately ended up being. For whatever reasons, obviously the reasons for this antagonist doing what they did were sound and understood. I just would have preferred it had not been that antagonist. But with that being said, it doesn't make it bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just my preference is not what I would have wanted to see. But all in all, I thought the movie was great. I really do. I thought it was so good that I've seen it twice. I took my boys to see it on Monday, and then I took my wife and my boys to see it again today. So we enjoyed it thoroughly. And I'm actually surprised that my boys were able to sit through it 2 times. It's a relatively long movie, but they sat through it. They enjoyed it. I loved watching the action that took place on the scene. I thought the action was top notch. I mean, they ripped quite a bit from the Marvel games, from the Spider-Man PS4 game and the Spider-Man 2 game. You can tell that they played the game, or they watched the game, and they watched the way that Spider-Man moved, because that's exactly how Tom Holland's Spider-Man was moving, almost beat for a lot of those fight scenes. So that was kind of cool to see, a nice little references back to the game, and back to other Spider-Man lore. It's going to be really interesting to see how this sets up Peter Parker's, final act, for whatever these last couple movies are going to be. And I got speculation on how those are going to play out. But whatever the last few movies are going to be, this has been a great table setter for them. I was really, really surprised at how good this movie was. I knew it'd be good. I didn't think it'd be that good, and I didn't think it was going to sell. Again, Spider-Man, so you know what's going to sell. I don't think anybody expected it to sell that quickly, that much that quickly. 1.1 billion dollars, excuse me, and today is Wednesday. It hasn't even been out a week yet. Is insane. So I think that's going to kind of point to a bigger problem at large for Marvel, but we'll kind of talk more about that a little later on. So, all in all, I thought it was great, Joe. I really thought the movie was really good.
I thought the movie was good too. I thought the movie was good. I thought it had a lot to do. Daniel Cretton was given a lot. He's given a very tall task to do a lot of things in this movie. And again, for the most part, he accomplished quite a bit for as far as I'm concerned. I really thought it was a good, solid film. Didn't nail the landing on all the characters, because again, there's so many characters in this film that have to get a start, middle, and end as far as is concerned in this film. To some extent, it's not everybody gets the kind of the shoelaces aren't tied for every single individual, but again, for the main ones that matter the most going forward, for the most part, he did a good job of that. And again, you can see that Sony and Marvel wanted him to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all the way down the list as far as to Z, as far as what we want you to get accomplished with this film. And again, for the most part, he hit really solid beats, especially where it matters the most, as far as for what it sets up for not only Spider-Man, but for other certain things. I'm not trying to spoil anything, other certain things in the future as well. So again, for me, it's my second favorite Tom Holland film. And again, for the MCU Spider-Man, it is number 2 on that. So I think it's, again, a really, really solid film that had a lot to deal with, and for the most part, did a good job in doing so.
Yep, 100%. I agree. I have it ranked as as my first favorite. It's my favorite of the Tom Holland movies, but I think you're right. The director had a lot to do, a lot to establish, a lot to kind of put the pieces in place of. And again, very very similar to the way Captain America would be previously in the Infinity Saga for the MCU. How that was kind of the table setting movie, if you will, for the remainder of the MCU. This one had a lot of setup. There was a lot of setup for this film, and I think by and large, the director did a very, very, very good job. Yes, I agree that there were some things that didn't land nearly as hard. I really wish that we would figure out what we're going to do with Mark Ruffalo and the Hulk. But other than
No,
that,
they just well, I can't say what, just kind of just.
Yeah, they
That's
just kind
all
of throw
I'll
him in
say.
there.
That's all I'll
They
say.
kind of throw him in there as necessary, and I wish that they would come
And
up
they
with a
threw him out
better.
as necessary.
Yeah, he was in and he was out. He served as a catalyst to do some stuff, and I don't even know if I'm upset because I
I
think
don't even think he
sometimes
was needed.
I don't think he was needed, but it made sense how he kind of pushed that story forward, and then
Mhm.
what it did. And I'm trying very hard to not spoil anything. Although if you're
I can
listening to a
mention.
podcast, if you're
Well,
listening to a
I mean,
podcast
just
that talks about it,
yeah, and we'll have to do a spoiler cast at some point in time. I'll just say this: would it be fair to say that if you took 2 or 3 or 4 characters out of it, you maybe would have told a more refined story? Because there are 2, 3, 4 characters you could say, you know what? It's great that they're in it, but they didn't really, really, really need to be in it. If you know what I'm
well,
saying.
yes and no. And the reason I say that is because, and I think we kind of talked about this, even when the last we spoke when my daughter was on the show, but it's important that we see Spider-Man in his element, and having the time jump between Far From Home, No Way Home, excuse me, and Brand New Day. It was about a 4 or 5 year jump, if I'm not mistaken. They had already kind of finished up with MIT. They were finishing with MIT, so there was a lot to take in regards to who Spider-Man is to the city of New York now, as opposed to who he was at the end of No Way Home. There was a lot to take in that regard, and it was important to kind of establish that he has a rogues gallery. It was important to establish that he does, on a regular basis, pretty much deal with the worst of the worst of New York, and he does this day in and day out as full time, not as Peter Parker, who's daylighted or who's sometimes Spider-Man. He's pretty much full on Spider-Man all the time. And so I think that it was important that you've seen how many people he dealt with on a consistent basis, to see how hectic his life had become, but also to see how laser focused he had been on just being Spider-Man and isolated himself completely. So could you have done with less? Yeah, I'm sure you absolutely could have. You could have given other people a little bit more prominent to do. But at the same token, I think it's important to establish his rogues gallery and kind of really establish this overall world that Spider-Man deals with a lot of villains. And it's not just the Green Goblins, it's not just the Venoms, it's not just the Doc Ocks. He deals with a large array. And yeah, there were some that were kind of one-off cameos, very similar to what Deadpool and Wolverine did with how the different Wolverine variants, and you have them all on the screen for just a second, or maybe 2 or 5, whatever the case may be. But I think it did well in establishing the status quo for Spider-Man right now, and showing who he is, and what he's been dealing with over the course of the last 40 years. So, yeah, I mean, could they have done less? Sure, but I don't think that the amount of people that they had in the movie was a detriment to it in any way, shape, or form. I think the only person that was really unnecessary to me was the Hulk. But that doesn't mean that he was bad. He just really wasn't necessary, because you could have found another way to kind of establish that the whole mutation thing. But and even then, if you turn around and look at the way that they integrated the Hulk into it, and the kind of ideas and the thought process and how he does what he does, it makes sense. I think that the Marvel problem with the Hulk is that you have to figure out a way to give us the Hulk that we want. Nobody wanted Smart Hulk. Like, Smart Hulk was just not what anybody asked for. In fact, the once we've seen, the big Hulk, that's who we pined for. That's who we were cheering to see again. So I think Marvel just has to kind of figure out the best way to integrate Hulk into whatever they do, and not be not feel like they have to put him on everything. Like, the Hulk is good in small doses because he's really just a big rage monster. The one that we want to see. We don't want Smoke Hulk. We want the rage monster Hulk. So with him, you have to have him in small doses. I don't know if you can have him very, very often. So I think they're figuring out the best way to utilize him without giving him a full-fledged solo movie, because they can't. Obviously, the licensing issues with Universal and so on and so forth, and they have to have first rights to refuse and all that stuff that's way above my pay grade. But I think that they're figuring out the best way to utilize him, and still keeping him a part of the MCU and utilizing him where he can. So I'm not upset about that. Did they absolutely need him? I mean, no, I guess they didn't honestly absolutely need him, but I don't feel like he detracted from the story. I feel like he helped kind of push it forward the way it needed to be.
Well, again, overall, you and I both enjoyed it as far as the Tom Holland. I know Tom Holland has been not exactly beloved for his acting prowess per se. I think to a lot of people he's approachable, and as far as his acting style seems relatable. But like the character itself is that he portrays with Peter Parker all these years, his acting has been, for lack of a better term, flawed at other points of times. As far as not, like for instance, the Odyssey. The Odyssey came out getting rave reviews and whatnot. The one individual that they seem to want to target the most is the one that behind Matt Damon got the biggest paycheck in of course Tom Holland. So with that said, I think he does a good job here with what he, like you said, probably his best job overall as Spider-Man and Peter Parker, both in this film. And I think what he has to deal with, of course, throughout this movie, from villains to himself, is something that I guess I would like to see more of as far as the concern. But again, the future of the character and how long he wants to portray it obviously is ultimately up to him. Whether or not they pass it off to Miles Morales, as it heavily rumored, or how he has himself described how he wants to vacate the role at some point in time. It's really going to be hard for him to do so because he's the biggest selling Spider-Man of all time.
Yeah, I mean, $1.1 billion in less than a week being released. It's going to be really hard to, to turn down Marvel money. I mean, he's getting very Robert
I can see
Downey-esque.
Amy Pascal of Sony say, "Hi, Tom. How are
Yeah, hey, buddy, how you feel about
we'll
doing
let you
another
make
one?
another Uncharted again. Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, because you wanted to make that before. Yes, you ruined that IP on the film
Duh.
on movies, but go
Yeah,
ahead, make another one.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
seriously.
fine.
You know what I will say is I can, and this is going to be spoilers, so that we need to put a spoiler alert at this timestamp because this is
Spoiler alert.
spoilery, spoiler alert. But I really appreciate how they showed restraint with the ending. And what I mean by that is by not allowing things to return back to the status quo with the people that he loved the most. With not having MJ come back to him, not necessarily knowing what's going to happen with Ned. But it'd have been really easy for Marvel to have said, let's erase that and give them, the love, scene that they want to be able to have as far as having them remember who each
They
other
don't have
are and
closure
fall
as
in
of
love.
yet.
They don't
They
have
don't
the
have closure.
closure. And I appreciate that Marvel did that when they said, the spell worked. I don't know who you are. I don't have those feelings for you. Who you wrote that letter for, I'm sure she appreciates it, but I'm not her. I thought that was very impressive that they had the restraint to not let that thread be tied up completely and to kind of leave that open. I think it's also very smart because that leaves room down the line for them to be able to do that as well. But them giving him a little bit with Ned, hopefully remembering who he is and actually remembering versus just the muscle memory of the handshake. I thought that was a very, very, very good touch. Um,
But before we
the
head to the
biggest,
break, my friend,
yes, sir.
though, got to be one thing I got to ask you.
Go for it.
And it is, we've been going back and forth over the years now about the Marvel end credit scene from where they were at as far as how they masterfully, and you got to admit, masterfully
Yeah.
back in the 2010s, even
Yes.
on bad Marvel movies, they were able to create and craft mid or end credit scenes that told a story, overarching story. They were able to go ahead and keep interest. And then you have this decade, which is all over the place and all over the map. I don't think it was the worst end credit scene I've ever seen because I think that goes to, man, I'm so disappointed. And not only was I was hyping up Brave New World for so long, and I was so disappointed with that movie. And on top of that, it had the worst. I think you and I commented that was the worst end credit scene, and it looked like they filmed it like 3 days before they put the movie out because it was just so.
Yeah.
He wasn't even talking to Tim. You could tell they were not even there in the same time frame and the same, with
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie and Tim Blake Nelson. They weren't even in the same city probably at that point.
No.
When yeah, it was really really bad. This one with the end credit scene, I'll say it okay. I'm sure there's a point to it. I'm sure that it will get around to it, but I really needed to see something for Doctor Doom and something that set up Doomsday even better because I don't think they've set up Doomsday as well as they should have, and I really think that even a small chance in doing so could have been taken with a better end credit scene at Spider-Man Brand New Day.
I agree. I think that it would have been something to have actually had, somebody monitoring Spider-Man or somebody monitoring his progress or what he's been doing, and you not necessarily seeing who it is behind the camera watching him, but just kind of somebody keeping an eye on Spider-Man and what he's doing. And um, I would agree with you also that they have not set up Doctor Doom very, very well. I don't know how much of this has to do with the fact that they had to kind of switch gears and go from Kane Conqueror to Doom. I don't know how much of this stuff was already worked on previously or what. I don't know. I don't know. I would agree with you that the storytelling element is a little bit lost in this multiverse saga as far as telling us the big setup for the end. And yeah, it's left a little bit to be desired, that's for certain. What I can say though is I really do appreciate them sticking to a small potatoes to quote small potatoes approach to Spider-Man, saying that he's a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for a reason. We want him to focus on New York, focus on this smaller section of the world and handling the problems that come with this smaller section, as opposed to some of the big multiverse implicating issues that are going to be popping up. Obviously, I don't think it's a surprise that he was not in any of the marketing or any of the stuff for Doomsday, because I don't expect him to be in Doomsday very much. I would expect maybe to be a cameo at the very, very end or something to that effect. I don't expect to see Spider-Man in Doomsday. I expect him to have a much, much bigger role in Secret War. Obviously, for people that have read the comics, they understand the implications of Secret War and what happens with Spider-Man during that time. But yeah, I do wish that they'd done a better job setting some other things up for Doomsday, at least, because obviously that's the one that's coming first. We're going to get Doomsday, and then we're going to get Secret War.
No
So I
better
feel
time
like,
to do it, so my friend. I mean, there's only a
yeah,
few. There's only a few people watching Spider-Man Brand New Day, so I don't know why you would want to go out of your way to put a
yeah.
major advertisement for the film coming up here in 4 months. Why would you want to do that, Mike?
Well,
I don't
because
know.
they're a little arrogant. They don't need the advertisement apparently. With Spider-Man Brand New Day, it's only $1.1 billion in less than a week. Like, God, And I think that ties into the bigger problem that we're going to have on Marvel, and especially if you look at some of the things that have happened. If you look at some things that have happened over the course of the last week, um, or I should say over the course of the last year, not just the week, but the last year in general, and what they're willing to take their chances on and what they're willing to not take their chances on. Um, what's obvious is that people love Spider-Man. People show up tomorrow for Spider-Man. They show up tomorrow for Avengers. They show up tomorrow for the big tent pole moments and movie moments. The problem with that is that it's going to be very hard for Marvel to get out of the Spider-Man Avengers tentpole business. And so when we have the Wondermans, when we have the Blades, when we have the Iron Hearts, when we have the shows and movies that are not producing at the level that they wanted to, and now they're going to be less willing to take chances on shows like that, because the things that they're taking and the things that people are coming to see, they're really coming to see. So the Spider-Mans that are doing billions of dollars, the Avengers that are doing billions of dollars, it's going to be hard for them to look at other projects with the same gleefulness or the same enthusiasm when they know I could pump out another Spider-Man and probably pull in another $1 billion or come close to and really make the money for it. So I think the bigger problem now that we're going to have with the MCU is really them having the not the cojones, but them being willing, maybe it is the cojones, them being willing to still take gambles on other IPs and other properties and not just let it turn into a Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers tentpole. Because I mean, even if you look at things like the Fantastic Four, by all means, the Fantastic Four flopped. It didn't do what it needed to do for Marvel in regards to the return on investment. It just wasn't it wasn't the movie that everybody was hoping that it would be. And rightfully or unrightfully so, whatever the case may be, it's been difficult. They've had a very, very difficult time after Endgame, and they've had a difficult time getting other balls rolling. Um, and it's going to make it even harder to do so now because the proof is in the pudding. They put out a Spider-Man movie and $1 billion in 6 days. The proof is right there. It's going to be very, very difficult. So they've got a bigger problem right now. The bigger problem is how do we sell everybody else the way we've sold Spider-Man, the Avengers, and I'm sure what's soon to be the X-Men as well.
We'll see what happens, my friend, but Spider-Man Brand New Day is still setting records even as we speak, and that's great news for the box office, great news for theaters, and also if you want to go ahead and check it out on IMAX this weekend, to give you guys a heads up, it will now, Spider-Man Brand New Day, be available on IMAX screens. The exclusivity of the Odyssey ended after 3 weeks, so even though you'll be able to see the Odyssey still on IMAX screens and the IMAX 70 millimeter, you'll also be able to go ahead on IMAX screens and see Spider-Man Brand New Day. So if you want to go ahead and check it out in that format, it will now be available when you hear this. So if you have thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New Day, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. And I'm going to say it right now, TJ, before we head on to the rest of the show. I don't think anybody's going to take my bet, but I am betting that Avengers Doomsday does not hit the same kind of financial heights that Spider-Man Brand New Day does. And I think that is a slap in the face to Kevin Feige and Marvel. And I think it's very well deserved in doing so.
Yes. I would absolutely take that bet, but I would take the bet if I was betting with you, not against you. I 100% agree. And the reason that I 100% agree is because, again, it's just as we talked about. Spider-Man is established IP. Yes, we understand the Avengers. We understand who they are. But we also know that the Avengers are fractured. This is not the same Avengers that we had 10 years ago. This is not the same Avengers team that have gone into Endgame and
Oh, they're trying
Infinity
to
War.
get you to do that, though. They're
They're
trying to
trying to, but they haven't been successful thus far. The multiverse saga has been a mixed
bring
bag.
out those Chris's.
Yeah, bring all the Chris's. It's not going to matter. The problem is the multiverse has been a huge mixed bag, and because it's been a huge mixed bag, the tentpole movie of the multiverse saga, the tentpole movies of the Avengers saga, of the multiverse saga, the Doomsday, there's the stakes aren't there. We don't really understand how important the stakes are for Doomsday because this was not the original plan. I really, really believe that once things shifted from Kang the Conqueror the way that they did, they had to really go about rewriting a lot of stuff very quickly. And I'm not giving them a pass because this is what you guys are paid to do. You guys are paid to figure out ways to make this stuff work and to put this together and to put out these movies. You guys are paid a lot of money to do this. So I don't give them a pass for that. I will say that I can imagine that they had to really turn around and try to rewrite a lot of things. Trying to figure out a way to work Blade in didn't work. Trying to figure out a way to do, whatever it has to do with the other, other characters who were, maybe well received, but not critically, not critically acclaimed, whatever the case may be. There was a lot of things that had to change for him. So this ramp up to Doomsday has not been easy. It's not been pleasant to sit through because it has been very up and down the entire ride. And it's unfortunate because I'm invested in Marvel. I've been invested in Marvel as a kid, and now as an adult who has gone through the MCU from its beginnings with Blade. I'm before Iron Man, but if you go back to Blade and you go back to the original X-Men from Fox, and then you start going into the 2008 Iron Man, and then and moving on from there. I've been invested and I'm going to continue to be invested, but I'd be lying to you if I said that they're in a great place right now. Right now, they're not in a great place. Spider-Man is in a great place because he's Spider-Man. Spider-Man is probably one of the most beloved, if not the most beloved superhero of all time. I mean, he's right up there with your Supermans, your Batmans. Like people think of superheroes, they think of Spider-Man. And I almost say that they think of Spider-Man first. But again, that's debatable. But the point being, is I expect Spider-Man to do gangbusters. I expected that. And I think that's why it was so tough when Sony was originally trying to do Spider-Man movies after Tobey Maguire going into the Andrew Garfield, era of the Spider-Man. And it just wasn't working. And, they seem to have lost their footing, which is surprising because Spider-Man is such a beloved character. For you to lose your footing on Spider-Man and for it to really have done as poorly as it did, you did a bad job. You did a bad job marketing. You did a bad job, promoting. You did a bad job advancing that story in any way, shape, or form. Plus, people still weren't ready to let go of Tobey Maguire, so that kind of didn't help it. It is going to be a slap in the face, but I don't think it's going to be unexpected. I think people are going to expect that Avengers, unfortunately, is not going to do the same kind of dollars that Spider-Man Brand New Day has, and I think that is rightfully so because they're they shouldn't get the right to do that. They've been too all over the place with the Avengers right now and with the multiverse saga. And Spider-Man has been probably the most consistent thing we've had in the MCU outside of the original three Captain Americas or everything that came post or pre-Endgame. So it's going to be interesting to see. But no, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's a very, very smart take. It may be a little hot for some people, but I think that's a very, very smart take. I don't see them doing more than what Spider-Man Brand New Day is. I'm really going to be interested to see what the dip off is next weekend, though. That's going to be a big tell for us.
We'll find out. This week's competition is not really competition, as box office still again most likely will still be 1-2 with Spider-Man Brand New Day and the Odyssey. The Odyssey will go over $1 billion itself, which is a great success story in and of itself. This week, it'll probably end up being number 2 behind Spider-Man Brand New Day, unless Avengers Doomsday can pass it. So we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, with what's going on this week, there's really not a whole lot coming up for as far as the box office is concerned. I don't think Super Troopers 3 Ice Cream Man and One Night Only are going to actually compete in the same hemisphere as Spider-Man Brand New Day. So I think that it's safe to say it's going to be number one for at least a little while longer. So please check it out if you haven't already. Again, solid reviews, good reviews from both TJ and myself. Josh hopefully will comment on it on the Monday show indeed. But if you have thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New Day, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. And when I first heard the premise behind One Night Only, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a really cool sci-fi flick or something similar to what I would see with The Purge. And then I hear it's a rom-com, and then I hear it's set in modern day, and then I hear about how the fact that they have this premise, but they really don't do much with it or explain too much around it or talk about the premise that is there anybody really fighting it. And I'm just thinking to myself, I think I'll go for another night only somewhere else, but that's just me. So with that said, again, all those 3 films are available this weekend as well. And also wanted to go ahead and mention the Star Wars Jedi, the latest anime series is coming. It's on Disney Plus. If you want to go ahead and check it out, the Ninth Jedi, just to let you know, is available. Ted Lasso, the latest season 4. The show is not dead after all. So Ted Lasso is available now as far as season 4, Apple TV Plus. I don't know if it'll actually hit the heights and the craze that it once did, but we'll wait and see what happens with Ted Lasso. And also The Shards, based on an 80s thriller as far as season 1 for that on Hulu and FX. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up on what's streaming this weekend as well. But interesting, Ted Lasso. I'm interested to see if this is the same fervor over Ted Lasso this time around, and I'm not sure it will be. It just doesn't seem like there's that same je ne sais quoi. Yeah, he came out during the World Cup and all that, but it just does not seem like it's that same fervor for Ted Lasso there once was. Ted Lasso was the show on Apple TV Plus for years, and they went away, they retired, everybody thought it was done, and now he's come back for a season 4, and it just seems like, okay, we're cool with it. But yeah, I think a lot of people have moved on, which again is a problem in the streaming industry. Just talked to Netflix about a lot of their shows that have not, a lot of people moved on from season 1 to a season 2 because it takes so long to go ahead and do these shows, sometimes years in between seasons. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Ted Lasso indeed. But before we head on out, my friend, I did want to run off a couple things to you. Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, that is, speaking of Marvel, has been released out into the wild as far as the fighting world is concerned, getting pretty good reviews. Could this be a Marvel property that continues to connect with an audience going forward?
I think it's going to be interesting to see. One, I tried the beta out a couple times, and I agreed that the action was fast paced. It was fun. I think I was probably in the camp that wanted more of a Marvel versus Capcom style of fighting, whereas this one was made by a different publisher and different gaming or different fighting engine altogether. It just didn't hit the notes that I wanted it to hit. Doesn't mean it was bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just felt like it was a little too busy. So I say that to say there's a bit of a resurgence in Marvel games that are a little bit more user friendly right now. Obviously, looking at Marvel Rivals as being a huge success or being a relative
That's
success.
what I was going to say. Marvel, this would be 2 in a row if that's the case, because
Yes.
Marvel Rivals has done really well. I think as a hero shooter, it's probably done exceedingly well in a genre that was, at the time it got released, kind of fading
Yes, it
on its
was.
way out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Marvel Rivals did what the Avengers game tried to do after, the whole storyline they tried to go, obviously with the looter shooter and whatnot. I think that's what Marvel Avengers was trying to do. So, anyways, with that being said, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see if the fighting community takes to it the way that they tend to take to these games, especially when the ones that they really, really enjoy. We're looking at people still play Mortal Kombat 11 or versus Mortal Kombat 1. They still play Street Fighter 6. So the fighting community really will tell you the kind of legs that it has. We'll start looking at Evo next year and seeing what the lineup is going to be like. will Marvel Token be on there as far as its event lineup? So we'll come to see about that. I think the bigger question now is going to be, what do you do to continue to put the Marvel games into the forefront? Obviously, we know we have Marvel Wolverine coming out next month in September. So we have Marvel Wolverine coming out next month in September. There's still that Black Panther, Captain America movie by
I
Amy
think
Hennig,
1943
1942,
Marvel, something like that. Yeah,
1943 or something like
Hydra's,
that.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we are with that, but there's
I
a lot
hope
of
it comes
other.
out because Amy Hennig is still
Yes.
much revered in the industry.
Yeah, so we will see. I guess my point in saying that is right now Marvel's on a bit of a win in regards to its games. Obviously, Spider-Man 2 was lukewarm, right? But it's still so well enough to warrant a sequel, to warrant to Spider-Man 3. So we'll see what happens there. It's been a lot of fun being a Marvel gamer as of late. So we'll see if that trend kind of continues um, and continue to move that needle in that direction, hopefully going forward.
Absolutely. We'll wait and see. But it is Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. So go ahead if you're interested in jumping into another fighter that's out there, similar in the vein of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and the like. If you're interested in going ahead and delving down the Marvel road with Marvel Token Fighting Souls, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. And the other video game I wanted to go ahead and talk about this week, Beast of Reincarnation, which when it came out, action related RPG, has a Asian theme from the Far East, similar in the vein of some other action RPGs based in the Far East in the past couple of years that we've seen. Nothing really stands out with it. It's gotten reviews that have been okay. It's got about, I think, about Metacritic around 71, something like that. Not too bad, not too great, not too good. But it's okay. But you think those type of games are going to end up being at the clearance counter at your local GameStop here within 3 or 4 months, as far as it's concerned. So with that said, though, I would say hold up, because there's something interesting about Beast of Reincarnation you may not know about. Who made Beast of Reincarnation? And when you look it up, you might be very surprised. It's Game Freak. And because Game Freak has this little property that you might know of by the name of Pokemon. So with that said, my friend, I don't know if this game is going to last, but I'm not going to count it out from being a sales winner, despite all the lukewarm reviews and whatnot, because of the fact that if the fans of Game Freak and its other property, that little game called Pokemon, decide they want to go ahead and support this venture, I actually applaud Game Freak for stepping outside the box and doing something different. They didn't have to do this. They could have just sat on the Pokemon money train and just kept on going, coming out with, the regurgitations of Pokemon games that everybody likes, plays, and then complains about the graphics later on about that every single time it comes out to your Nintendo Switch. But I want to give them a lot of credit. I do want to give them a lot of credit, Game Freak. They stepped outside of their comfort zone, and it may not necessarily pay off, but I'm not going to go ahead and just dismiss this either, because there is a very real possibility the Game Freak community could get behind this game and still make it a financial success anyways.
Well,
There's a possibility. I didn't say it was a for sure thing, but I'm just saying that, I'll never underestimate Pokemon again in my entire life.
okay.
Where do you?
Well, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't agree. I agree that they should be applauded for doing something different. I agree that they should be applauded for taking a project that is not Pokemon related and still putting it out there, because they, like you said, they very easily could just keep cashing Pokemon checks 100%. However, the fact that it's Game Freak is not going to sell this, because I didn't know it was Game Freak that did it, and quite frankly, and that's no offense to anything you just said, but I don't really care. The game is mediocre. Rather it was Game Freak, rather it was EA, rather it was 2K, whoever made the game is mediocre at best. It is not a game that's going to sell gangbusters. It's not a game that's going to sell consoles. It's not a game that's going to sell
I
to
didn't
people
say
that
I
are not
would. I
interested.
just said I would be
Well,
surprised.
well, I would be shocked. I would be shocked if this game sold well enough to warrant sequels. I would be shocked if this game sold well enough to have somebody looking at it with, for a second or third attempt. My point is, it doesn't do enough to capture. It's not. It's made in the same vein as like the Sekiros and even the Jedi Fallen Orders with its combat style and so on and its presence, and that's great, but it doesn't do it either as well as either one of those two games. I played it. I played it for about 2 or 3 hours yesterday, and I have zero desire to go back to it. Nothing about it stood out. Nothing about it was overtly fun. The controls felt honestly a little chaotic. It was much more of a button masher than I really would have wanted it to be. It was not as precise as I would have wanted. There was nothing that was outstanding or extraordinary about it, unfortunately. And I don't say that to be mean because I'm not a game developer and I understand that there's a lot of work that goes into these games, and I get that. It doesn't change the fact that I don't care if it was Game Freak, Game Smart, Game Not, like whoever made it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't change the fact that it is a very mediocre game at best, and that it is not doing it won't do it has not done anything or does not do anything that would warrant that type of endearment to the community, regardless of who's making it. I think that it's great that Game Freak decided to do that. I think it's great that Game Freak wanted to put something else out and, you know, establish themselves as people that, also do Pokemon, but do other stuff too. That's great. And I don't knock them for it. However, if you're going to do something that's not Pokemon related, you better knock it out the park. And unfortunately, Game Freak did not knock that out the park. It is not something that I would expect um, to have very long legs at all. And yeah, nothing about it was extraordinary thus far. I'd be
So you see
surprised
it
if
as
I go
more.
back to it.
You see it as no more than just a trivia question at the end of the day.
Correct.
What game did they make outside of Pokemon? You really?
Correct.
Uh, oh
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Nothing spectacular. Nothing spectacular.
Okay. Fair enough indeed. But it is Beast of Reincarnation is available for all the platforms right now. If you're interested to take a look, it is available indeed. Please let us know if you feel the same way or if it will have some legs. Again, I'm not going to say I would be all 100% surprised, but we've seen crazier things happen in the video game industry indeed, as far as games that maybe didn't deserve quite the following that it had get the following that it had. And I'll just say that and leave it at that. But if you have thoughts on Beast of Reincarnation or also as well Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. But before we head on out for the PCC Multiverse, some quick thoughts. Got less than 8 minutes left. WWE SummerSlam has come and gone. I think they're just finally ready to just move on from Minnesota. Underwhelming attendance numbers. They didn't even announce it during the course of night one or night two. The card for both nights as a whole, I guess you could say they lived through it. You could say we lived through it. CM Punk and Roman Reigns retained their championships going forward. The new interim, which I can't even stand that name, interim. I cannot stand interim. Just okay. Rhea Ripley is hurt. Make this just the world title championship bout for the ladies, and
Just
move
vacate it.
on from
It's
there.
fine.
And just give her and just give Rhea Ripley the first title shot when she comes back healthy. That's what you do. Don't need to do this interim stuff. But anyways, congratulations to Chelsea Green, much deserved. And she dedicated her win to her nemesis, Michael Hayes for that. Your thoughts, my friend, and then of course the all-important Obafemi Brock Lesnar matchup in the Hell in the Cell, which I guess came out to if you liked it. I kind of was disappointed by it. Obafemi did come out with the expected win. Brock Lesnar later retired, didn't even retire on the WWE programming. He retired on an ESPN afternoon show, which makes it even more disappointing. But it goes to show you, TJ, that you can give it somebody a tombstone pile driver onto a wooden platform when you uncover all the ring and you just pile drive their head onto a platform and nothing will happen.
I think the weirdest relationship that I've seen in the modern sports era has been the relationship between ESPN and WWE. You have a flagship program or a flagship company that's supposed to be talking about sports, and we're talking about like sports that you play competitively to win, not staged productions. And then here we are marrying that with WWE, and it's a weird world that we're living in. S- SummerSlam was ah,
Eh,
gee, and is putting it mildly. I think night two was substantially better than night one. But I also think that the storylines going into night two probably hit a little bit better just because they had a little bit more weight, especially looking at Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. I think that
well, do I have to look at it?
you don't
Sorry.
have to anymore. It's already done.
Is it still
Yeah.
taking place? Because it seemed like it was so slow it would never end.
Yeah, but we're not talking about a good wrestling match. We're just talking about storytelling. It
Okay.
wasn't a good wrestling match, no, by any stretch of the imagination. No different than Hogan versus Rock, right? It wasn't a good wrestling match, but it told a good story. My point is that there's going to have to come a point in time where the WWE has to find a way to move the needle beyond Roman Reigns. They have to move the needle beyond Cody Rhodes. They have to move the needle beyond CM Punk. They have to move the needle beyond all these older veterans in the game who, by and large, are still doing it. But there's got to be something more going forward. I like what they're doing with Obafemi. I think that they're kind of pushing him down our throats a little bit too much. I don't. I want I wanted that climb to be gradual. Make him out to be a monster. Make him out to be this huge force of nature. Come out and stomp somebody out every now and then, and kind of give him a gradual build to this world title contender. I think that they really decided to just kind of push him and rocket him to the top, and I'm not mad about it because I like to see people getting their opportunities, but I like to see them when they're truly deserved. I think we're really, and when I say we, as if I'm part of the WWE, but I think they're really dropping the ball with somebody like an LA Knight who has come in and given you fire for a long time. He's come in and giving these guys straight fire. His promo against Roman or with Roman Reigns the other night was great. Um, and I think that it's really unfortunate that he wasn't, born into, a Hawaiian family or wasn't part of a wrestling dynasty coming into the WWE. He really does have the chops to take it and move the needle forward, but he has not been given that opportunity. And I'm not sure why. For him to have been doing it for as well as he has been, for him to connect with the crowd or as much as they have.
I can tell
Um,
you why. It's because whatever he's doing behind the scenes is not endearing himself. He is a enigma to them behind the scenes because of what his demands are or what their demands are, and it's like you have that star player, and it's just not seemed to be meshing like the ending of the LeBron era in LA. It just seemed to be like something. You know what? It's probably best that part ways because it really just seems very uncomfortable right now for both. But you can see that there's still talent and there's still greatness there. With LA Knight, you can see that again that people want to get behind him, but they really already know that there's always going to be that glass ceiling for him, and that's a shame that he's getting that way.
that's the biggest problem that he hasn't been able to break through that glass ceiling for whatever reason, being he's not as agreeable backstage, and I don't know that I don't know that to be true or not.
I
What I
hope
do
not,
know,
but those are
yeah, I
those are
hope
the
it's not.
reports.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that's not true. But what I do know is that he's been money on television, and he's been money on as far as WWE programming and being a consummate, professional. At least what it looks like inside of WWE. What I can say is that he's becoming a little bit of a who was the wrestler that was the Feed Me More? What was he? What was his name? Remember the one that would always go Feed Me More? The
Oh,
one that had
Phoebe.
the big promo with John Cena where he got a Ryback. He's getting a
Yes,
little
that's right.
Rybacky. He's getting a little Rybacky. He's complaining a lot. He's starting to push that envelope where what he's going to come out and say. He's going to say, he deserves a title shot. Nobody wants to see Bloodline 2.0. He's going to say the same things over and over again. And it's getting a bit repetitive in that regard. Um, So I don't want to see him go that. I don't want to see him get to that point. I want them to truly give this guy a shot. But for whatever reason, he's being held back, and only the big wigs up in WWE in Connecticut, they can tell you what's going on exactly. I can't, but he's not getting the push that he should be getting. We're almost past the point where he should have got it.
Well, I think the crowd in Minneapolis told the story that changes need to be made and things need to be tried that they're not doing. And as long as it's status quo, that could be a problem going forward for the WWE, as we saw with SummerSlam on Saturday and Sunday indeed. But my friend, it's been another great episode. You knocked it out of the park as always, my friend. You just sling those webs across the show. Any last thoughts, my friend, before we head on out?
I think I'm looking forward to us doing a spoiler cast about Spider-Man Brandon, because a lot of things that we didn't discuss that I want to be able to discuss. So I'm looking forward to the spoiler cast. And there's still so much in the world of pop culture this week. We've got the final episode of House of Dragon for this week. We've got X-Men 97. There's still so much let's talk about. Spider-Man is a big deal, but there's still much, much more to go.
So for TJ Johnson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.
Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.